Welcome to lesson 4. So we'll begin, as we always do, by gently closing our eyes down and taking a moment to settle in our chairs. Allow your shoulders to relax. Allow your jaw to soften and relax. Invite your brow to become smooth. Notice your sit bones and allow them to settle. And just on your next out breath, give your whole body weight to your seat, wherever you're choosing to be for this lesson on this day. And then we bow our heads towards our hearts. We begin this day in gratitude. We open our hearts and we surrender to love. We ask love and light to lead the way through the minutes and the hours of this new day. We welcome joy, fun, and abundant prosperity. We recognize that all encounters are wholesome and that all experiences can be met with a peaceful heart that is anchored in the truth that we are one, we are love, we are free. We release these words, and so we let it be. So here we are at lesson 4. So lesson 4, these thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. Unlike the preceding ones, these exercises do not begin with the idea for the day. In these practice periods, begin with noting the thoughts that are crossing your mind for a minute, and then apply the idea to them. If you are already aware of unhappy thoughts, use them as subjects for the idea. Do not, however, select only the thoughts you think are bad. You will find, if you train yourself to look at your thoughts, that they represent such a mixture that, in a sense, none of them can be called good or bad. That is why they do not mean anything. In selecting the subjects for the application of today's idea, the usual specificity is required. Do not be afraid to use good thoughts as well as bad. None of them represents your real thoughts, which are being covered up by them. The good ones are but shadows of what lies beyond, and the shadows make sight difficult. The bad ones are blocks to sight and make seeing impossible, and so you do not want either. This is a major exercise and will be repeated from time to time in somewhat different form. The aim here is to train you in the first steps toward the goal of separating the meaningless from the meaningful. It is the first attempt in the long-range purpose of learning to see the meaningless as outside you and the meaningful within. It is also the beginning of training your mind to recognize what is the same and what is different. In using your thoughts for the application of the idea for today, identify each thought by the central figure or event it contains. For example, this thought about blank does not mean anything. It is like the things I see in this room, on this street, and so on. So you might put a person's name in there. This thought about John does not mean anything. This thought about Sam does not mean anything. This thought about politics does not mean anything. You can also use the idea for a particular thought that you recognize as harmful. So this could even be this thought about myself. This practice is useful, but it is not a substitute for the more random procedures to be followed for the exercises. Do not, however, examine your mind for more than a minute or so. You are too inexperienced as yet to avoid a tendency to become pointlessly preoccupied. And, we're all aware of that from even meditating, where, we get caught up in a thought and then we follow it. Could start off, I need something from Dunn's. I need milk from Dunn's. If you're Irish, Dunn's is a local store. And then, you kind of start thinking about milk and the varieties of milk, and maybe you should be drinking more oat milk, etc. And we get lost in thought. So the idea is not to get preoccupied. Further, since these exercises are the first of their kind, you may find the suspension of judgment in connection with the thoughts particularly difficult. Do not repeat these exercises more than 3 or 4 times during the day, and we will return to them later. So there is that invitation there to repeat them at least 3 times today. So just maybe in the middle of the day and at the end of the day that you will repeat this exercise. And that's an interesting line. You may find the suspension of judgment in connection particularly difficult. And what I would say is if you find yourself in judgment, don't judge that either, because we have old habits and old ways of being, and we're just beginning to undo them. So don't be hard on yourself if you find yourself judging these exercises. Okay, so we're going to close our eyes down and we're going to notice our thoughts. And basically, we're going to say whatever thought is passing your mind, it doesn't matter what it is. This thought about blank does not mean anything. Again, we're not asked to become invested heavily in the exercise or what it means. We're just letting it wash over us. So I invite you to gently close your eyes down, and we'll take a minute with this. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to our shared space. So I always find this exercise fascinating, simply because, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Like, let that sink in. 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And most of those are regurgitated. They're on a loop. They're like the same things over and over and over again. And when I closed my eyes down, the first thought I had was there was a child making noise outside, crying, and I found it slightly irritating, but I also was wondering if it could be picked up. And then I was like, no, it can't. And then it was like, okay, this thought about the child crying does not mean anything. And then I went to a judgment thought about whether I should be calling home more often or not while I'm here. And then I was like, this thought about my phone calls does not mean anything. And then I went to, I can't remember my dreams. So somehow I started thinking about, was I dreaming last night and I can't remember it? And these are the kind of things that we are preoccupied with. This is what we spend our time, is considering these kind of random things, instead of like that being anchored in love and moving from moment to moment, like really learning to be in the now. And this is what this lesson is really about. It's, having us be in the now, because, even while we're observing our thoughts, we're beginning to be in the now. However, when we become preoccupied, we leave the now. We go into the past or the future and we get lost. So beautiful lesson, and enjoy practicing it again today, perhaps in the middle of the day and again this evening. But for now, we're going to just let it go completely, and we're just going to allow ourselves to have some quiet time to meditate. And so I invite you once more to close your eyes down. Drop your awareness downwards, perhaps all the way down into your pelvic floor, so we come out of the head. right down into the body. Just allow yourself to relax and become restful. Let your brow become smooth. Let your scalp relax. Let your fingers and your toes become relaxed. Notice your breath. Simply breathing in and breathing out. And just being aware that right now, there's nothing for you to do. There is nowhere for you to be. Just present to your breath. Now take a few moments of silence. And if your mind wanders, bring it back to your breath. And when you're ready, gently draw your chin into your chest. Open your eyes with your gaze downwards, and then drawing your gaze upwards into the space. Thank you for joining me for lesson 4, and from my heart to yours. Have a wonderful day.